Hey everybody, Doug here. I'm at NAB 2022 in Las Vegas. I am in a production truck from a company called HighEndTV. And what I wanted to show you guys was what you get when you go to the next level above the truck that I've actually built. And so I've got Adam here. He's the owner of HighEndTV. He's
As I just trip off a chair.
Struggling with a chair here.
Yeah.
But Adam's going to give us kind of a little bit of tour of what they've got going on here. And yeah, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. So we'll start the back, work forward. We have 12 HTC 5500s, Sony's flagship camera with a 4K sensor and HLG, high dynamic range, in and out. Also for F5500s on order to do cinema, depth of field, and mix and match them for concerts and whatnot. One really neat thing about the truck is every single piece of gear, the leader scope, the Atomos monitors, the Blackmagic recorders, the Asus monitor wall, the Cobalt multi-viewers, the Cayenne switcher, everything is 12G, and everything is high dynamic range compatible. So there's no, fingers crossed, even though we're watching this in 1080p, we're recording at 4K. And, is that in focus? Are there dead pixels? What's the high dynamic range look like? It kind of takes the guesswork out of it. That was the goal with the truck, to provide premium 4K entertainment production in and out, and from literally every 4K lens to every 4K monitor.
How long did it take to actually build this truck?
Well, about 8 months on paper.
Okay.
And me and Min, the V2 on this truck, we sat down and thought of all the previous scenarios of our other truck. Like, gosh, wouldn't it have been nice? Like, every time we have to run an Ethernet run or put it over a TAC12 to get the lighting director a switch at front of house. Like lots of little things we just learned through previous builds that we realize, what could we just build in now that will make it so much easier in the future? So for 8 months, we combed through. That was kind of part of the evolution of the wiring diagram. We did it once. We know this will work, and then it's like, okay, what can we do to make it better, make it a little more functional? And then we were one of the first customers with the 5500s, and then when we kind of bought them a little before the tech specs were finalized, so when we learned about things like there's a gigabit Ethernet trunk. Okay, well, how handy could that be to either pump Dante or intercom or switches to, and how are we going to implement that into the wiring and that kind of thing? So 8 months of combing through paper till it was like, okay, this is pretty much finalized. And then once we got all the gear in and the truck itself, the truck was actually the very last thing in the whole build. So we had stacks and stacks of equipment before we got the truck. When we got the truck, about 5 weeks to actually crimp all the cables and label everything, because we just attacked the spreadsheet. It's like he took, I started with Ethernet, and he took video, and then we went to audio and kind of just met in the middle till, okay, now it's all wired, turn it on and test it.
How big of a crew did you have building it for you?
Just 3 of us. Yeah, because it is a truck. It's not like if we had 2 more people, I think we would have gotten in each other's way more than we would have saved time. So yeah, one of us generally, and we kind of rotated off, because if one of us did all the Ethernets, I think our fingertips would have fallen off. So yeah, label, cut, and then hand it off, and then somebody else terminates, and then an installer. So cutting, crimping, labeling, installing, and just kind of rotated doing that for 5 weeks straight.
Five very intense weeks, I'm sure.
5, yeah, pretty intense weeks. Yeah, because it's not like, especially on the high density connectors of the router, you have 144 cables going into that much surface area, 6 rack spaces, that's it. So it was to keep it organized, we started at the router. So every input, regardless of how far away it was, we just like top to bottom, or actually inside out, populated the router to keep it crazy organized. And just one thing at a time till it was all done.
Okay, cool. Would you mind taking us through some of the major components that you have in here? Would that be all right?
Sure. So, yeah, I think the coolest thing is, and our biggest probably claim to fame, or certainly our biggest expense, is in the cameras. The Sony 5500s. It's the ultra high bandwidth. We shot out every camera possible. I don't want to call anybody out, but we felt that the Sonys, especially in concert production, which is most of what we do, we go to 4 spotlights to complete darkness, like almost instantly. So we needed a camera that was great with really, really high light and great with really, really low, almost no light. And as far as 4K camera chains, we thought the 5500 was pretty much the ultimate performer. Add to that the coming out with the F5500. It uses the exact same CCUs, the exact same RCPs, but with a PL mount, so you can get cine depth of field.
How have you liked those cameras in the real world, actually using them?
Oh, phenomenal. And in fact, we've even done several concerts that aren't airing in 4K, that aren't airing in high dynamic range, but we found that shooting in 4K and in HDR, and then conforming that, actually one of the, which leads me to one of the next core pieces of gear. Inside this rack, well here, it's not that glamorous. It's just a card, but it is a very expensive, cool card. The 9904 UDX's 4K is one of the things that will make our picture out of this truck look better than pretty much any other truck out there, because that is a real-time HDR to SDR converter. So when you have really extreme lighting, where you have spotlights and audience in the same shot, we found that it can take a high dynamic range picture and algorithm out and convert to SDR way better than just running the cameras in SDR and shading it manually, because you always had to split the difference. Do we expose for skin tone and the audience is just pitch black, or do we kind of on the wider shots push that to how you can see the audience but they're definitely overexposed? Well, with HLG, you have enough overhead that it's plausible on an HLG monitor, but if the final distribution is not in high dynamic range, to crunch that to SDR, that looks better than just doing it in SDR to begin with.
And this does a pretty good job of that then.
Yeah, I think Technicolor's won Oscars. So yeah, it's an expensive, and it's so unglamorous because it's just a green card in a slot that we route our finished product through that nobody really appreciates until people see it on Facebook Live and they're like, wow, that concert looked amazing. That's the best looking concert I've seen. And nobody really appreciates all the stupid, nuance, routing, and effort it takes to make that happen. But
okay, so you got your CCUs, your RCUs here. What other major components back here that my viewers might be interested in?
The switcher. This is a big deal. The Grass Valley K-Frame XP. It's Grass Valley's first completely 4K switcher, and what I mean by that is you don't lose resources when you switch it to 4K. Prior to the K-Frame XP, and that was true of every switcher manufacturer until their most recent generations, when you switched it to 4K, you lost half or 3/4 of your functionality. So it took 4 keyers because the brains were all 3G. So if you push 12G through it, 4 keyers became 1, 40 inputs became 10, and of course with a 56 input switcher, and I mean, they said they could build it. We were going to have a refrigerator height size switcher frame. To get 50 inputs, we needed to actually buy 256 inputs. It was just not feasible. So we actually did all the drawings and cable list for a switcher that didn't exist at the time. But we had the promise from all the switcher manufacturers, we have this coming. We'll have something available, we promise. So we kind of banked on that.
It all worked out, though.
It all worked out, yeah. And then, yeah, K-Frame XP with the Cayenne panel.
Yeah, and I noticed there's some equipment back here that a lot of my viewers will recognize. We've got some Blackmagic gear. We've got Smart Video Hub and some Terranex AVs.
The primary router is the Utah Scientific. That's 144 by 144. These cameras have 5 returns, between trunk lines and returns, which is great for prompter. And they want a multi-view right off camera. And in addition to that, the cameraman needs a return. It's amazing. It's one of those things, you never use 5 trunk lines, right? Until you have them, and then it's like, and then when the lighting director says, well, can I have a second monitor that's always programmed? Actually, yeah, and it's very easy. So rather than to buy a DA per return channel, we actually just put a Blackmagic 40 by 40 hub. So any return between all the returns, 12 cameras times 5, we
still don't have enough.
Yeah, rather than to DA all that or patch all that, we just put a smart video hub, and all this does is feed the returns and trunk lines.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, and
Yep.
some Teranex there's for
Some Teranex up down, great up down cross convert. When a lot of times we show up and and we need to play back this video, and it's not 4K or it's an off frame rate. So these are kind of our Swiss Army knives of, audio embedders, de-embedders. They do so much in one little rack unit that.
Do you use those for converting from 4K down to HD as well, or do you have something else for that?
Rarely, because they don't do anything high dynamic range. So for the most part, we stick for down converts to cobalt. We use them more to up convert than down convert, but also to cross convert and to troubleshoot and embed and de-embed. They do so much. Or to zoom into a piece of a picture. Just last week, we had a director that said, or an assistant director that wanted the countdown. What graphic? We were running ProPresenter per their spec, and she would like to see just the countdown corner and the multi-viewer. So I could route her HDMI signal to that box, but how am I going to zoom in? And it hit me. Oh yeah, we'll just route it through a Teranex, punch into that corner of the computer screen, and then she gets those numbers right in front of her on the multi-viewer.
Great utility product, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Cool. All right. Anything else back here? I see you got RTS intercoms. So.
RTS intercom. That's the core pieces to it, I think.
All right. So let's talk about your monitor wall you've got in here.
The monitor wall, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you choose for monitors in here?
For monitors, the Asus ProArt 32 UCX.
And then you chose that because?
Because it is, I think, 1200 peak nit. It's something way up there. It's 2160 native with no scaling. So 4K and high dynamic range. It supports HLG native, which is the flavor of high dynamic range that the cameras are doing. In that range, because we have 15 monitors in here. We could have done Sony, Boland, TV Logic, something crazy expensive, but you're talking $30,000 a monitor. We're not going to spend, $1 million on the monitor. We have critical monitors back there, but for in here, we felt like the Asus bang for the buck, the 32-inch, at I think $4,000-ish was very good.
And I know it's not going to show up on camera, but these actually do look great. Plenty of brightness, plenty of contrast, very saturated, very accurate colors. So yeah, they do look great.
Yeah, seeing is believing, because you can tell people no HDR. It looks really like but until you see it. The first time I saw HLG, I actually teared up a second, because this is what we've been trying to do this whole time. Not only can you see, in HD, it's like you can see the hairs. Now it's like you can also see the highlights and the overexposed things. One of the first projects we did was the Kentucky Derby's opening fireworks show, Thunder over Louisville. And just to see the fireworks, and again, we didn't have to split the difference of the iris. We could expose the talent on camera, their skin properly. At the same time, the fireworks, they didn't clip. They just went to that extra range.
You actually have color in your fireworks instead of just white blowing. Yes, yeah.
And we could see it on the monitor wall. Of course, it aired going through one of those Technicolor cards I was talking about, so it got folded down. But still, it looked great.
Notice behind you've got some Hyperdeck recorders.
Hyperdeck recorders,
yep.
Yes.
Yeah, are those the 8K models?
They are the 8K models, and we went with that for one great reason. I won't call any names. We had different brand in our old truck and our other flight packs. We've had different brands. The coolest part about these, especially when we're recording 4K, especially in 60 frames a second in ProRes HQ, these drives top out. They're different per model number, but 500 megabits per second. We're actually pushing that. So if one drive is ever so slightly not up to its sustained write spec, the drive would fail. The best part, in my opinion, about these 8K recorders is if something goes wrong, if the drive isn't up to spec, even if some dum-dum pulls it out while you're recording, which I just did, seamlessly switches over to the cache memory, which we've loaded up with 250 gigabytes. So you'll notice it's still recording, the numbers are still ticking, and you'll notice the cache time remaining is going down. That's because it switched to its internal memory. When I put the drive back in, it starts buffering it back and rebuilding to that drive, so you didn't lose anything.
You went with the SSD external drives instead of doing CFast, I noticed as well. So
Yes, because when you're doing 3 hours 4K, we will walk with terabytes at the end of the night. That's another reason actually why I love these, just off-the-shelf SSDs. You know, in the old days, you'd record a proprietary media on Pix 240s or Key Pros or whatever, and at the end of the night, for some reason, being the truck engineer, they would just say, well, here's our drive. We'll see you in the morning. Like, I have to stay up all night and transfer these? What I love about this is at the end of the day, we push stop, and then we say, and here's your drive. And they just take these. These are, in many ways, the new tape stock. And the price per terabyte, it's not too far off from what tape was back in the day, or what buying a RAID and transferring it to it would have been. So
the other nice thing is if you find you don't have enough media, you can stop at your local Best Buy and pick something up.
You can Amazon Prime. Yeah, you can even do that with Betacam tapes. Well, of course, that was a different century. But yeah, to get more media at the drop of a hat that's not crazy proprietary and you have to wait months. Yeah, I love everything about the way we're recording.
Yep. And I notice you got 2 of the controllers for those drives there. And
yes,
yep.
Exactly. Yep. So we can push record at the same time, stop at the same time. It's especially handy doing episodic TV, not concerts, game shows, and whatnot, where you start, stop, start, stop. Having the exact same in point and out point makes editing a lot faster.
All right, can we talk about what else you've got on the front desk here?
Sure. Just intercom, user stations. We have a bunch of ties, because you never know. And this is something we learned on our other truck, that we have in our mind what should go here, and then inevitably. And actually that's true. You'll notice there's 2 Ethernet and a USB and some HDMI just here and there and everywhere. And all it does is go to a patch point. Because our very first gig, they said we would like a smaller switcher next to the main panel to switch iMac completely separately, which was actually no big deal. We put a Corona panel from one of our fly packs in here. Just patched it, a 1-foot cable, very clean, went to desk C. Desk C goes to the K-frame, and then he controlled ME3, completely independent. And likewise, we've done robots up here. We've done robots back there. We've done robots, adding PTZs to a show is easy. Where does that person sit is always the thing. And between gigabit trunk lines and the cameras and gigabit patch points all over the truck, literally, we can have PTZs 1,000 feet away by front of house or up by the drum riser. You run an Ethernet to the closest camera, and then you jump from the desk to wherever they want to control it from, be it the TD or producer, whomever. So with like 2 short Ethernet cords, we can control PTZs thousands of feet away. The old way of doing that, Ethernet to fiber converters and a TAC-12, and it's crazy. Yeah, all the little things make it just faster, easier.
Talk about your technical director station over here.
Well, it's the Cayenne. It's a 3-bank. It's your usual Cayenne panel, the same one that is the panel that it seems like most technical directors want.
For most of your shows, how many MEs do you actually have active? How many do you use?
It seems for the most part, you either you're not reaching up too much because you build it into your macros, but it's even for a concert, you think, well, that's just 1 ME, that's just cut and dissolves, we don't need all that.
But then you throw in iMag or something else.
But yeah, but by the way, lyrics are only going to be on the side monitors. Oh, and every time we cut to the jib, we need to make sure that we're on a close-up on the side screens. And you could switch that independently, or have a completely different technical director for that, or you could build a macro and put that, instead of taking camera 5, every time you want to take camera 5, you push that, and it puts camera 1 on your side screens, waits a quarter of a second, and then takes that. But that second switch resource has to happen somewhere. So the second and third MEs get used a lot for that. Also, key designation with double take. That's in many ways it makes a 3 ME switcher like a 6 ME. Not just a clean feed and a dirty feed, but which key goes where and when can be defined as well.
You got access to all your graphics up here as well?
We can control the graphics machines and the playback machines via AMP over Ethernet from the switcher to make ProPresenter triggers or impression triggers or the HyperDex playback as part of a macro to do that perfect like cut, swish, input, the transition, the sound effects, everything happens and the playback triggers at the right time. That's for the award shows is awesome. So that's the controllability from there. Generally, of course, these backbenches are kind of generic and per show. Generally, we had in mind producers will sit here and graphics will be over there. But on many occasions, we have 4 channels of graphics and no producer because the producer's inside the venue. So we'll make these all graphic stations. Or sometimes the teleprompter, and they want the teleprompter to be right here beside the director. So we put teleprompter here. But like I said, between the Ethernet ties, the BNC ties, and the HDMI and USB ties we just have here and there, it's pretty easy without running cables through mouse holes and rewiring the truck to just say, you want that here? Fine. We'll just notice that desk G needs to patch to machine X, and then there you go.
Yeah, awesome. And I like the little touches you got, like
Yeah.
chargers for phones.
Oh, yeah.
On all the desks.
Everywhere there's a chair, there's a place to charge your phone. That's honestly as much as for me as the clients, because every client that comes in here, or our old truck, the first thing was, where can I plug in my phone?
Yeah,
It's
I've experienced the same thing.
let's just go ahead and make that part of it. It's literally part of the furniture. Just set it down in front of you.
Now, how do you typically handle audio? I didn't really see much for it in terms of audio gear. In
Sure.
here.
Well, that's a completely different world, which is actually right around the corner. Follow me. We have at the core of it is a Studer Vista console. 128 channels of stage box to console, 128 channels of console to DAW, and 128 channels to our backup recorder to 64 channel sound devices. So you can do a great live mix on this desk, like we did for Chris Tomlin, and at the same time simultaneously multi-track it, which we're using Cubase for that.
This is all Dante based, right?
No, it's all MADI based.
MADI, okay.
Yeah. The only Dante we have is Dante 2 MADI converters. Studer's very friendly with MADI. To get multiple channels of Dante into computers, I mean, you could add additional Ethernet in, but Dante is extremely versatile, but MADI is more just, we think, just point-to-point audio in, audio out. And for concert tours especially, they seem to, at least for now, I think maybe they'll, with Yamaha's new console, that may change, but for the most part, people are pushing MADI, whether it's over Digico or SSL or whatever. Most concerts can just hand us Dante, or I'm sorry, most concerts can just hand us MADI. If they do hand us Dante, we have the converters to just make that into MADI, and that's how we deal with it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Very cool.
Yep. I probably left out like 90% of the gear probably. We also have AES trunk lines through the cameras and a bunch of analog because you never know when, like next week they're going to have 2 playback computers on the stage. Okay, well that's an analog source, Not everything can just be one BNC and MADI. So.
Not so convenient.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. So, how many people do you typically have working in the truck at any given time on a show?
You can pull off a show with as little as 6 people in here, but we've had as many as like 18. And that's the very most. That's when you have, like we were doing on this, you have a recordist over here and an audio engineer just mixing for the live. That's when you have 2 producers. That's when you have 2 channels of graphics, a TD and AD, a tape op, 2 shaders, an EIC, and usually 5 or 6 looky-loos that we find a lot of times band manager and label people will just peek their head in the truck for a second and just say, you know what, I'm going to stay here. So that's why the 60-foot or the 60-inch Expando, it's a little much for just a single row, but it comes in handy so much when you have just extra people. No matter how much space you have, everybody always wants just a little bit more
always
space.
use more. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you have one printer, they'll want it to be color, and if people have asked, where's the refrigerator or where's the bathroom?
I get those too. Mine's a
Yeah.
lot smaller than yours. So, yeah. So I know a lot of people are going to ask for online streaming. How do you handle that?
That depends per gig because a lot of because we're very, very rarely the production company. We're usually working for a production company or for a record label or for a promoter or in this case for an artist. And they have their own portal, their own specs. So sometimes they come in with a Resi server. Sometimes they have the live stream that they use. Sometimes just OBS and a Blackmagic interface. So whatever it is, it's kind of you tell us what flavor you need, which is usually 1080p with embedded audio. Or we could do 12G with embedded audio, whatever. We just hand that off, mostly just hand that to somebody else. Let the stream guy just handle that on whatever aspect with 12 cameras, and we have enough to worry about.
It's nice you have the luxury that you don't have to worry about that all
Let
the
the
time.
stream guy handle
It's like
streaming.
in my world, we're responsible for everything, start to finish. You
Yeah.
know, so.
Yeah. We give them advice sometimes, but that's got to be somebody else.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Okay, anything else you wanted to?
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so if someone wants more information about what your company does, where can they find you?
HighEndTV.com, and we have all of our flight packs, trucks, camera information there, all the rentable stuff listed as well. Instagram handle is at high.end.tv.
And where in the world do you operate?
Well, Nashville's the headquarters, but this month we're in Las Vegas, then Los Angeles, and then San Diego, and then New York. So literally
Pretty much anywhere U.S.?
Yeah, we've been to Miami, to New York, to Los Angeles, to Seattle. So
okay, wonderful.
Everywhere.
Awesome. Okay. All right, there you go. An inside peek of what a bigger truck than mine actually looks like and how it works. And appreciate your time, Adam.
Yeah,
It's
no problem.
been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thanks.
So there you go. Thanks, everyone.